Hello. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Eleanor Hawkins. I'm really excited to welcome you to our last event, number 16 of 16. Give it up for the Axios event team, if you don't mind. It's been a really, really awesome week here with you all. Thank you for stopping by. We are finishing out really strong, and we are joined by several corporate affairs, communication professionals to talk about the next generation, the new agenda for the modern CEO. And so I am joined here on the stage now with Pfizer Chief Corporate Affairs Officer, Sally Susman. Sally, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Eleanor.
I'm really excited to have you here on the stage because, well, first of all, you're kind of a Davos pro. You've been here a few times, right? Yes. What's one of your takeaways now that we're at the end of the week? What have you taken away from your time here?
Happy to talk about what I've taken away from Davos this year. But first, really want to thank Axios for everything that you guys do to keep us all informed. And also really to thank you, Eleanor, for the work that you do. If you had asked me to swim across the Hudson River to get here today, I would have. So thank you for having me.
Yeah.
So Davos 2025, just about a wrap. For me, I think I would take away three themes. First is, if any of you, like me, work in the business of trying to help leaders understand the world and explain things that are happening, business is good. It's a complicated time. And I think the fields of communications and government relations and corporate affairs are going to be very, very busy, as most of the CEOs I've talked to seem to feel like they need almost a global diplomacy department to sort of understand this very complex and rapidly changing world. Secondly, and I know everybody says it, I don't want to be cliche, but I got to get better at AI. I really realized I thought I could do it, a little bit here, a little bit there. But I heard, I think it was Mark Benioff this morning, say that these CEOs of the future may run companies with no people. Yeah. That AI can do not some of what we do, but everything of what we can do, better than us. You look like you want to interrupt
Well, I was going to
me.
say, and that could be a communication challenge, right?
It's huge. It's a huge communications
That's something
challenge.
you're going to have to explain to the new workforce, explain to shareholders, explain to all of these many stakeholders. How are you thinking through that, along with just getting better at the tool itself?
Well, Jennifer Temple here and I were at a dinner about 2 nights ago where I heard the phrase that I have FOBO. Have you heard about FOBO? Fear of being obsolete. Well, that was new for me, and that I'm panicked. And I'm trying to learn as fast as I can, reshape my team if necessary.
Mm-hmm.
I've kind of clung to the notion that inherent in what I do is try to give good advice, think around corners, decide where to go, where not to go, how to answer questions or not answer questions. And I have really to think about what is going to be this upskilling that I need to do, that my team needs to do to live in that world. And then just the final observation, as I'm always reminded how great it is to be together with people from around the world. I have Nancy Spears, an old friend, just met Liz from DoorDash. We just sort of in our daily lives can get into a hunker down in our work world, and to be here and to take a global perspective was really great.
I want to go back to FOBO.
Okay.
I don't think you should have it, by the way, because you have managed, is it 9 CEOs over 3 different companies, American Express, Estee Lauder, now Pfizer. And I feel like that's rare. Typically, when you see a CEO transition, you often see the head of corporate affairs or comms also exit. Talk to us about the longevity of staying in a company, advising multiple CEOs. How have you maintained your post?
Yeah, 3 companies and 9 CEOs. The key thing is, as much as those of us in the field try hard to support our bosses, to serve them, even to represent them, it's really important to remember that at the end of the day, you work for the company, not the person. And that can be really hard. If the boss says that she wants this and you don't think it's right, you need to say so. It is courage and speaking truth to people that can be uncomfortable. But you need to ask yourself, if my boss wasn't here, would my company still see me as an invaluable asset? And I think that is the key to it. Just keep in your mind, it's not about your reporting line. It's about the mission and the mandate of your company.
You've also navigated several administrations. So you do have experience with the Trump administration. I know that you all have your CEO attended the inauguration. Is that right?
Yes.
You all have visited President Trump in Mar-a-Lago. How are you planning to engage with this incoming administration?
Actively. I'm a lifelong Democrat. I've worked hard on behalf of Democratic policies and campaigns and people. But my job, leading government affairs for the company, is to work with any administration, and we're, been bipartisan all along the way. And so my CEO, Albert Bourla, has, as you said, Eleanor, met several times with President Trump when he was president the first time, towards the end of the election cycle, right after the election, but before the inaugural. And every year, our executive team takes a 1 week offsite, first week of January. And I always really look forward to it because it's like a chance to reset, kind of get my head back in the game after the holidays. And we've gone some interesting places for this first week of the year, January. But my boss decided that we should go to Mar-a-Lago. And I was like, wow, that's an interesting choice.
So your whole executive team.
Yes, there are
is
about
there.
10 of us that report into Albert. And I have to say, even though I was, really had to think about that and wrap my mind around it, it was a great decision because this is where it is happening. And the president is there. He was well prepared. He was expecting us. He greeted us. We spent time with him. And this is not a time to disengage. It is not a time, no matter what you think of or what your politics are, to sort of sit back in frustration. Engage, engage, engage.
And it seems like there's been a shift. Maybe that action a few years ago might have created some internal discussion, maybe some internal backlash with employees. It seems to me, from where I'm sitting in my reporting, that employees are being much more pragmatic when it comes to government relations. What have you seen internally? Was there any backlash? How are you addressing this incoming administration with your employees?
Well, Pfizer has 85,000 employees. I wouldn't presume to think I know, Eleanor, what they think. And I think that's a mistake that a lot of people make in HQ, especially those of us who work in HQ in blue places. I work in New York City or sanctuary cities. I think everybody's employee base is probably as diverse as the world itself. And so I think it's, a mistake to sort of think that you can convince them that they should think this way or think that way. What you hope is that they have some degree of faith in their leadership to be acting on behalf of the best interests of the company. Again, not the individual, not because I feel this way or my CEO feels this way, but we're not Republican, we're not Democrat. We care about two things: patients, the patients that we serve with our medicines and vaccines, and innovation. What kind of policies will help us become more innovative and support our innovative initiatives? And we talk a lot about that, but I'm also resigned to the fact that people will disagree.
Right. We've seen, I guess, in the past 3 days, kind of a slew of executive orders come out of the new administration. And what I'm hearing when I'm talking to corporate affairs professionals is we're still digesting, we're still trying to figure out exactly what this means for us and our business. Where are you in that journey?
I think that everyone is TBD. Okay, I think it is TBD. This is a massive change in America, and there are other major changes also happening in other countries around the world. And we have a choice. Do we want to take a pessimistic, dark view and think that it's all going to be horrible? Do we want to be optimists, or even a frustrated optimist, and say, in change is opportunity, and it is on me. It's my job. It's the job of probably many others in the room with similar positions to get in there and make your case, and support your policies. I don't think everything is despite the flurry of executive orders, I still think there's a lot to be discussed and debated.
Regarding the new CEO agenda, which is what we're supposed to talk about, where do employees fit in that?
They fit everywhere. I mean, of all the important stakeholders that I have, government officials, the media, people like yourself, investors, patient advocacy groups, there's probably no singular stakeholder group that will impact the culture of the company, and therefore the success of the company, than the employees.
What are some other priorities for you and your executive team this year?
Well, we have put our focus very squarely on oncology. And we think that there are real opportunities for great advances, thanks to AI, thanks to trying to be more productive in our pipeline, to not have cures, not just treatments, but actual cures. And one of the things we're working on is a technology called ADC, which allows the technology to go directly to the cancer cells and not have such a horrible chemotherapy that's taking down your healthy cells as well. So, through productivity, through AI, through an acquisition we made of CGen, we are excited about and really focused on cancer.
And then I want to go back to, you're here on behalf of the corporate affairs team, on behalf of Pfizer. You've also been here with your CEO. How do you two work together? How does he view communication and corporate affairs?
Oh, so we work together great. I mean, of those 9 CEOs, there are 3 types. One type is the guy that loves this stuff but can't run the company. Then there's the one who can run the company but hates this stuff. And then there's the rare CEO, the one that I have now, who can do both.
What are your tips for dealing with all 3?
Well, if they can't run the company, the problems are way bigger than me. If my previous CEO was a very good businessman, but he always said to me, if I'm on television, Sally, it's a really bad day for you. Like, he didn't want to do it. He didn't want to, be in the mix. And it was, frankly, in some ways, a personal opportunity for me, because I did more things, I just did what I thought was the right thing to do. And I was fortunate to have his trust, but, I did more setting of the agenda myself. Having a CEO who is deeply engaged in both the business and the world is both exhausting and exhilarating, inspiring, stimulating, and it's 24/7. I mean, we were in the car on the way to the panel and reworking the thoughts, on our way to another event, reworking the thoughts. It's a process that, if you enjoy it, it's great. And if you don't do it, because it's a sport.
You wrote a book, was it last year?
Yeah. It was 2 years ago in March.
Breaking Through. It is required reading for all communicators, I would say. Talk to us about your decision to do that. Because in that book, you share really great communications advice, but you also share a lot about your personal background, your work experiences. Talk to us about why you decided to write this book.
Yeah, sure. So as a kid, I wanted to be a writer. Nobody as a kid says, I'd like to be the head of corporate affairs for Big Pharma. I wanted to be a writer. It seemed like a very noble thing to do. And I always wanted to write a book. And I made a couple of failed efforts at it. I wrote a horrible novel. I wrote a stupid memoir. And they're sitting in the bottom drawer of my desk. But I always kept writing. And I, would get an essay published, or I would put something on my LinkedIn. I just kept writing. And then during the pandemic, which was the busiest time of my career, I mean, we were working every day to try to find that vaccine, and then think about how would we get the world to accept it, and how could we produce it. It was during this time that I wrote the book. And Sometimes my boss would say to me, well, how did you have the time to write that book? But what I found is in the cauldron of a crisis, you have an energy and a focus that really supported my writing of the book. And just one last thing about that is before I turned it in to my publisher, the Harvard Business Review, I had a couple trusted friends and family to read it, make sure I wasn't making a fool of myself. And my mom said, "Oh, Sally, this is bad, very bad. In this book, you've told all of the most embarrassing stories about yourself and detailed all of your biggest mistakes." And I knew then that that was the point, is that all of us make mistakes all the time. And when we can share them and learn from them, that is what's really my inspiration to write the book.
One of the stories that you share in the book was around an op-ed that you all wrote following the mention of Pfizer during a presidential debate. And I think this is important because it does speak to the shifting media landscape and how CEOs can communicate. And in the communication space, there's a lot of discussion around like the go direct strategy. Can you share more about that decision and what
Sure,
happened?
sure. So, in addition to loving to write, I love politics. It's like my sport. And in the fall of 2020, there was a presidential debate between then President Trump and then former Vice President Biden. And I was taking the night off. I popped a big bowl of popcorn. I opened a nice wine. I settled in on my sofa and I was going to watch the debate. And within the first opening remarks, President Trump says, "I talked to that guy who runs Pfizer, and he told me we're going to have the vaccine before that special day in November." And with that, I dumped over the popcorn, I spilled the wine, and I started texting with Albert, and we had a problem because we'd worked very hard to depoliticize the vaccine. We never, when Albert said in March of 2020 that we were going to make a vaccine by the end of the year, I promise you, we were not thinking about any kind of campaign or election. Um, and so I wrote furiously through the night. I put my whole heart into this one, that we would never cut a corner for politics, that we had a history of a 175-year-old company to live up to, and that we would move at the speed of science. I really thought that was brilliant. Okay. And then I sent it to Albert, and uncharacteristically, he just signed off on it, said, "Send it in, letter to the editor from me." So I sent it to the New York Times. I sent it to the LA Times. I sent it to the Washington Post. I sent it to Chicago Tribune. I sent it to everyone, and nobody would publish it. Not one. Why? Because what they really wanted me to talk about was they wanted me to throw political mud back, not talk about how great my science was or the truth of my or the purity of our intention. But well, did he talk to Trump and does he talk to Biden and is it going to come before or after the election? And those were the things I didn't want to talk about, not what I did want to talk about. So I had to hang my head, call my boss, and tell him it's a no-go. They won't publish your essay. So I decided to send it out as a letter to our employees and put it on our website. And it went super viral. All those people that dissed me wrote about it.
They reported on the letter to your employees.
Yeah, they quoted it. They said they got a secret copy. I sent it to 85,000 people, but they got a secret copy. And I learned a huge lesson, which is if you take the time to put something from the heart in your own words and you put it on your own vehicles, you can have a conversation with the world. And I'm still, as you know, a huge fan of media, but it was very nice not to be disintermediated. And it is a continuing strategy that we use to try to make our website kind of our own vehicle.
We're sadly out of time here, but we do like to end on one fun thing. And I want to stay on this trend of, executives who are using new ways to communicate. Who is one person, one executive, one business leader, one peer who you really like to follow, maybe on LinkedIn or across other social platforms?
Oh, okay. Well, there are so many. Let me just try to think of one. Okay. I actually really admire Dan Roth. He's the editor-in-chief of LinkedIn. I've known Dan for a long time from when he worked at Fortune magazine, and then he went here and there. And I think he's got a very positive tone about what works at work. And I actually saw him here at Davos, and he's someone I deeply admire.
That's great. Sally, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Eleanor.
All right, we have one more segment and we'll be right back.